I like it when Ted's the villain because Ted, you're such a likable person that that,
Yeah, I'd make for
that
a great surprise villain at the end.
yeah, the reveal. It was Ted all along. And I would have gotten away with
Let's
it if it hadn't been for you meddling kids.
YouTube is not being helpful. Uh, YouTube, maybe Google's onto us. All right, I'm probably gonna have to stop and restart.
Are we live?
It seems like we're live.
Seems like we're live. I
Yeah.
can't get to the chat is the problem. And I can't. Yeah, I'm just getting video unavailable. Let me check from my email.
The channel says we're live, but it doesn't look like we're streaming. It says upcoming.
There we go.
Oh,
Okay, YouTube's being flaky today. Sorry about that, everyone. Some dead air at the beginning. I was waiting for YouTube to start the streaming and to give us the chat window, and it just wouldn't do it. Um, but we got it now. Let me pop out the chat window here and let me say hello to everyone and to ask questions. And I'll remind you that not always, but sometimes we run out of time. So if you have any urgent SEO questions you'd like us to answer today, be sure that you ask those early because if we run out of time, I'd hate to not get to it at the end. And that sometimes happens. Um, all right. So let's see. Yep, everything's looking good here. So on the software development update, I'm having a blast doing this top to bottom rewrite of my technology. And I like what Lior said in the Skype group. I'm taking it from version 7 straight to version 23. And so that's really what it feels like. I'm getting kind of close, and I'm learning all kinds of new things about Google, and even some of the ways that they are hiding data behind human behaviors. And so, it's really interesting seeing some of the things that they're doing. And there's just a really big difference between what you can gather from like headless Chrome, which is what all SEO tools are using, and what human beings have access to through a logged in Google session. And so, yeah, it really raises the question, is everybody doing SEO for SEO tools? And is that the same SEO as the SEO for human beings? And so that's kind of the crisis. That's the strange thing is that everybody didn't notice the big shift. And the big shift was when Google required JavaScript for viewing the search results. And it really struck me as odd. And every SEO tool that uses search results changed at the exact same time. And in the exact same way. They all switched to headless Chrome. And I think that was intentional. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm paranoid, but Google knows it's headless. The way I know that Google knows it's headless is if you're in headless Chrome, they won't let you log into Google. Headless Chrome cannot log into Google. And so if they know it's headless Chrome to block you, then they know all the SEO tools and bots separate from the human beings. And so that's kind of the crisis in SEO. And that's why I'm scrambling to rebuild the technology.
You know,
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ted.
oh yeah. So, what do you guys think about that? Am I just being paranoid?
Not at all. I actually had a conversation. This was a good conversation with a client, maybe a week ago, not even a week ago, where they had rank math on their website. Now, this is in the idea of optimizing for tools and not for Google. And they say, do you like rank math? Do you not like rank math? It's like, I have nothing wrong with rank math. There's, it's got its limitations like all tools do. Um, and fortunately, the client understood this. Like the problem that happens when you have a tool and they give you a score, you end up optimizing for the tool score and not for Google, and not for rankings. And they again, they understood that perfectly, and they're like, okay, yeah, you're right. That's a good point. But that happens a lot, and that's been happening for years. How many times would people mention DR? Or what's the DA of this of the domain, or the PA of the page, or what's the URL, what's the URL for? They're naming third-party metrics. They're not even looking at Google metrics, and they can't look at Google metrics. And there's a lot that's been happening a lot, unfortunately, Ted, is that people have been optimizing for tools for way too long. Now you've exposed and you've learned that now even if you think you're doing it right, you still might be optimizing for tools and not optimizing for SEO, which I think is an awesome
Yeah,
find.
and that's the thing. Earlier this year there was a flood of people saying, I got number one in Google and my traffic went down. And so I was trying to reconcile all those accountings, and it's like, yeah, it's because headless Chrome sees above the fold search results for your keyword, but logged in users see four ads.
Mhm.
You're doing SEO for a context that human beings aren't seeing.
Oh,
And so you got to kind of re-triage your keywords and find which ones have opportunities worth going after.
yeah. I think related to that is my insert tool name score is better than everybody else in the SERP. How are they beating me? As though the tool encompasses all of the factors of Google in the particular score that they're showing you. And they don't. I mean, they can't, honestly. But people think that way. They think, oh my goodness, my score, I've got more of this or more of that than everybody else. How could they possibly be beating me? And that's a lack of understanding that there are a lot more factors that go on than are shown by any tool, including Quora. And you show more factors than anybody else out there, and still, um, you can be killing it in all those things and still not be number one for some reason.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be showing a lot of new factors that I've never seen anybody using before. So there's going to be new things we're gonna learn. I'm gonna keep all the good old factors and rid of a lot of the crap that never did anything. So I like trying to filter it down to the concentrate that there's at least some evidence that it did something sometime. And the ones that never met that standard, let's get them out. And so that's going to be one of the big shifts is we don't need all 200,000 factors. We just need the ones that did something at least once, at some point. And so if it never correlated for any keyword ever, we're getting them out.
Cool.
All right. So with that, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make?
Announcements? No.
Nope. All right, then we'll go
I just came because
straight to
I
Charles's
heard Charles
presentation.
has a slide deck and I came to boo. That's all. That's my entire purpose here today is just to boo Charles.
All right, let's get to it. What do you got, Charles?
Share my screen. So you should see my discussion. First a discussion. I was originally going to call this a mini rant, but it's not really a rant because I'm not upset about anything. So sorry guys, I'm not going to be on a vein bulging rant about anything. But I had an email from somebody who's actually a viewer of the show. Hopefully they're on right now and they can listen to this. But they mentioned that they're learning SEO and they're going on and checking out other sites. They're checking out robust.txts and sitemaps, and they're finding all kinds of weird problems on all these sites. And we went back and forth a couple times via email. He's like, are SEOs just out there? Are a lot of SEOs out there just scamming people? Um, Now, the first answer, and I didn't even bother putting it in my bullets here, is yeah, there are some SEOs out there that are just straight up scams. They don't know what they're doing. And some of us have seen them on the different boards and want to think, I just got a client. What do I do? And like, yeah, no, you don't take a client if you don't know what you're going to do. But one of the things I like to bring up, and I think this is more of a nuance than, yeah, there's a bunch of people out there scamming and a lot of people don't know what the heck they're doing, even though that's one of my defaults always is, so and so doesn't know what the heck they're doing. Um, Sometimes, and my first point would, many people know just parts, and sometimes are very good at just parts of SEO. So sometimes people are really good at link building, or really good at technical, or really good at on-page optimization or keyword research, but they just have a gap in other areas. No one can know everything. I would just recommend for everyone to be as well-rounded as possible and really know how to find the answer. So there's all kinds of things I just don't know. A lot of it is very specific syntax. Like I don't remember specific syntax for certain things, but I know where to go to find the answers. Or I know, hey, I know how this works, but I'd have to go and do a little research to confirm that that's exactly how I think it works. So you're never going to know everything, but you do want to be as well-rounded as possible. So I'm not a big fan of folks who say, I'm just a content. You'll hear this a lot of times, especially in-house or in agencies. You'll hear people say, oh, I'm just a content, or I'm just a keyword SEO, or I just do link building, or I just do technical. They better be really, really good at that part for them to say they know nothing about the other parts. And there are some link builders out there who are really, really good. There are some technical people out there who are really, really good, but wouldn't know how to do other parts. And that's okay, but you better be really, really good at that part if you just know parts.
Well, I think a lot of what people consider scamming is they're like, oh, well, your last SEO didn't find X. And so because they didn't find X, they must be bad at SEO. And the thing about that is that you have to triage and set priorities. And
Yeah.
this is why my audits are so ridiculous, and I've never produced the same audit twice. Uh, because every business has different strengths and weaknesses. And I have this policy of if you see a problem, you fix a problem, or at a bare minimum, you document it for later to give to somebody else to fix. And that way people know that, yes, I saw that issue, but I don't think that's the issue that is hurting you in search right now. So that's not the one I'm going to focus on. And almost all of the time when I look at SEO's past work, even the ones that kind of burn the business and search, it's usually not that what they did was bad, it's what they did was incomplete. And if you understand how it was incomplete, then you can usually even have that past SEO be beneficial.
Incomplete, or I could even offer ineffective. Like they're doing something that doesn't work or doesn't work as well anymore. Maybe, and that's something I didn't put in as a sub point. Some
Yeah.
people have a toolbox And that's all they ever do is go back to that toolbox. And once those things stop working, or once they've done those things, they want to move on. I see that in agency and in-house all the time. When you see an SEO that's someplace for 18 months or 2 years, that means they know a couple things really well. They go in, they fix those things, they look like a rock star, and then they jump ship because they inherently know they don't have anything else to offer. Um, is that a scam? I don't know. They helped the company. They did help traffic to go up, and to their point, they left once they knew they couldn't help anymore. So maybe they're doing the company a service. But I've seen things like that. And we've talked about there's so much you can do in SEO. There's always things that'll need to be done. Lee, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, that's I agree with this, because there are so many pieces, and honestly, there is so much depth in each one of those pieces that you can't possibly know it all. So, I'm 100% behind that, become well-rounded enough to know where to go find the answer, and the finding the answer may be hiring somebody who's an expert at that particular thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go back. I gave talk in January, and in preparation for that talk, I went around and I asked a whole bunch of SEOs, this question. I said, all right, so you got a brand new client, and the brand new client is in a space that you have familiarity with. So, if you do local, they're a local client. If you do, e-com, they're an e-com client. And we've gone through the full audit of their site. There's nothing technically wrong, and their website, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it that would cause you to need to rebuild it. It's just time to start the SEO. Where do you start? And I asked a whole bunch of different SEOs this question, and I got different answers across the board. If you were a link builder, you said, well, of course, first we're going to do the link audit, and then we're going to start building the new links. If you're a content person, depending on the type of content person, you might be doing a content audit or revising stuff or getting the new stuff on there. Everybody resorted to their favorite tool, the one that they've gotten results with. But not every tool is perfect for every situation, which is kind of where you're going here, I think. So I can come in and do the most beautiful blog post optimized for conversion for SEO, but that's not going to help if I've got a technical problem that's preventing, Google from crawling the site. And so, did I scam them? No, I did something that, worked well. I just didn't, do everything that was necessary, and maybe I didn't know,
Yeah.
to do those things.
And
But there are people out there, and you see this a lot in the course space. Because when I first saw your title, "Are most SEOs scamming people?" I thought, oh, he's going after course providers, because
Well,
you do
and
have a lot of people that have an idea, and it worked once, and then they put it into a course and package it and put it out there and say, "Oh, this always works," and it doesn't always work. Which is just a flat out, money grab from people, and then if you happen to say, well, I'm trying your stuff, Charles, and it's not working, the answer that you typically get is, well, you're doing it wrong. Go back and do it again, rather than an honest appraisal. But,
yeah, and the inverse of that notion is people having their favorite YouTube SEO gurus, and the gurus will disagree. You'll have Terry Samuels saying that schema is, you can rank all the way to #1 with nothing but schema. And then you'll have another SEO guru like Jordan Pierce saying, I never do schema and I rank #1 all the time. But neither of them are wrong. They're just pointing out that there's multiple ways to get to the top. And it turns out that, my understanding is if you use the most number of ways to get to the top, you usually end up beating out everyone else. But yeah,
And
it's a
you
diversity system.
And you can have so, and this we're gonna I'll get you'll see this you see this in the third thing with systems and processes, but like you can have tools or courses. I think most courses and tools are decent. They have their place. Often, and I don't think it's even done intentionally, often courses come out as a this is your solution. And It might not be your total solution, or it might be great as your step 3 or step 5 or step 20. Let's take Quora. I love Quora. I think it's awesome. I was speaking with somebody and she was asking me, hey, I want to run Quora. I'm like, wait, before we even run Quora on this page, let's just look at it. Let's look at the title tag. Let's look at the H1. Let's look at the content. Why even run Quora until we just take take a look at a few things and then understand what's going on the page? And we can do all these changes. And then if that doesn't work, or if after a month we're still having problems, yeah, then we definitely let's get Quora involved. Let's get more data. But you can, it's tools and courses, they all have their place. You're not going to, there is no magic bullet. There is no, once you do this, all your SEO problems are solved. There's lots of ways. Number one, there's lots of systems, there's lots of processes, and everybody's strong at different parts, which is one thing. Now, I will say on the subject of there's always something wrong on a site. I do know a guy who's employed right this moment, and he won't be listening because he thinks he knows more about SEO than everybody else. He loves going to sites and then going into Search Console and finding problems and then saying, see, you've got all these problems. That's why the SEO isn't better. Now, I don't know if he's really that naive or if that's just I think it's a cynical ploy to, make himself look smart to everybody else. That's a scam in my mind. Like, full well that that's not either these aren't the problems or there's no prescription on what you have to fix this. They'll just say, oh, oh, look, this thing is an error here. And you've got 404s. Oh, there you go. You have 404s. That's why we're not doing better. But that's not true at all. You can have all kinds of technical issues going on the site, but that could not be why a site is going down. You have to have that well-rounded knowledge. And unfortunately, there are SEOs that go around and do things like that, both as part of a way to protect their job as an in-house or as a part of a way to sell their service. They just point out all the things that an SEO hasn't done for whatever reason. Either they didn't get to it or maybe it wasn't necessary, but they'll play it up as, oh, because they didn't do, because this person didn't do citations, they don't know anything about local SEO, or they didn't do this, they don't know anything about local SEO. And that's not necessarily true.
I'm gonna go the other way because I was doing some research recently and I came across a quote a number of times. And it took different forms, but they're all basically the same quote, which is, I ran a screaming frog crawl on this site. It highlighted a long list of things that were wrong. We spent an inordinate amount of time fixing each and every one of those things, and the site rankings didn't change. And we all know that there are things that you have that are, technically incorrect or not optimal SEO, like, oh, I don't have an alt text for, 5 images or something like that. Not ideal, but it's not the reason you're not ranking.
Yeah.
And fixing that one thing is not the reason that you're gonna rank either. So there's just, there's a lack of knowledge about sometimes what levers need to be, pulled in order to move rankings and what are just, smoke screens.
Yeah, and
So, sorry, go ahead, Ted.
oh, I was just going to say, and just because you ran a screaming frog crawl, that doesn't mean that's the way that Googlebot saw the page. And I get people all the time saying, Ted, these tools over here say I'm over optimized and I need to detune my pages. And your tool is saying I'm under optimized and I need to add a lot more. Which one is right? Well, the one that's right is the one that saw the page closest to how Googlebot saw the page. And Googlebot will often use a 12,000 pixel tall viewport to trigger lazy load content. So did these other tools have a 12,000 pixel tall viewport to trigger lazy load content? Because just that one difference is going to have one set of tools saying you're over optimized and another set of tools saying, no, you need to add a lot more. And there are so many, there's like a dozen different little technical details on how you see the page that would change, the recommendation from the tool.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. The other item I always like to point out when you see issues on a site is clients don't often, and whether you're in-house or not, don't often implement what SEOs recommend. Both as a consultant in-house, devs regularly push back on changes, sometimes perfectly reasonable, saying, hey, look, this is just a really expensive thing to do, or it's going to take us a lot of time, or we have other things that we just literally have to take care of right this second because they're broken. So everything isn't done at once for SEO. Once an SEO says something is broken, not everyone's going to necessarily jump and say we got to do it. And sometimes you'll have clients or in-house will just push back and be like, we really don't want to do that. I have a client right now. They got a little bit of a technical hit. I am pretty convinced that it is because of a pop-up. Google, I think, has just become a lot more sensitive to pop-ups. They're right now messing around with Cloudflare rules and are they, trying to make it so that Google doesn't see it? And my recommendation was just make this pop-up only appear on user interaction. Because if anything comes to your website and doesn't interact in any way, shape, or form, no scroll, no click, no nothing, that means they're probably not a person. It's probably just a bot. They're terrified of doing that because they're afraid they're going to lose email signups. So they're trying to find a way around it.
Well, how
So
many
that
bots have signed up for email?
Well, exactly. They're afraid that there are people that are coming to the website, and if they don't, that they think is their fear is people are going to come to the website, they're not going to interact, and if they don't see that pop up, then they might leave and not give they're just afraid of losing emails, and there's how do you get past just someone has fear and you don't? You just have to say, all right, look, they're just not going to implement my recommendation. They're going to implement something close to my recommendation. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. The analogy I always love using with SEO is like baking a cake. If you've ever baked a cake from scratch, if I were to, if I was baking and let's say Ted and I were baking together and Ted said, hey, Charles, I don't really like putting all that salt. I'm worried about my salt intake. Can we cut the salt in half? Is it still going to be a cake? And my answer, yeah, probably going to be a cake. It's going to be fine. And then
Yeah.
what if he says, I don't like all this sugar? Can we cut the sugar by a third?
Yeah.
Okay, will it still be a cake? Yeah, maybe. But if you do that at enough places, you're going to stop having a cake. And then if Ted comes back to me and says, hey, this didn't come out to be a cake, did it? I'm like, nope. What if we put the salt back in? Will it then magically become a cake again? No, you got to put everything back in, or you got to put almost everything back in. And that happens to SEO. You end up, SEOs get whittled away left and right. And then a client will say, okay, well, I'll do this one thing. Why isn't SEO working? So yeah, clients don't always implement SEOs. Sometimes you just got to hold a hard line. That was both the benefit and drawback to my career is that I would draw a line in the sand and say, no, this is what we have to do. And I know devs didn't like it. I know people didn't like it. But yeah, some
Yeah.
clients don't always implement what you recommend.
And when I see cases like that, it's just a spin on what I said earlier. I asked the question, are we doing SEO for bots and tools instead of for people? And you can ask that same question about the web development. Are you building your website to perform for bots and tools instead of for people? And you can even extend that out to the marketing in general. Are you picking your keywords that you optimized for uh, based on, volume of bots and tools looking at them or volume of SEOs searching for them? Because there are keywords out there where the bulk of the people that are doing the searches for the keywords are competing businesses and SEOs. And there are keywords out there that human beings that would buy the product would never ever search.
Yep, for
And
sure.
if the targeting is wrong, then the SEO is wrong by extension. And people don't go back to their basics.
Exactly. And then the third point I think is worth bringing is agencies, they have processes. And so sometimes you'll see people say, hey, why didn't you do, and this, we talked about this earlier, actually mentioning, why did you start off by building links? Why didn't you start off by doing schema? because that's not what the process is. My process is step one, do this, step two, do this, step three, do this. Lee, I know I've stolen part of your process. Say, oh, I like that process idea. I'm going to take Lee's process, but I'm going to adjust it the way I think it should be done. I think this part should be done here and that part should be done here. And this is now my process. So when someone comes to me and say, hey, why haven't you changed these title tags? Well, because we haven't finished going through indexation or we haven't finished fixing these, these types of technical problems. It's just the process. Also, agencies, especially agencies that are large or have a lot of clients, they have items that are outside of scope and they will draw the line and say, yes, this is an issue. We see a technical issue or we see a programming issue or a user interface issue or a security issue even. We're not getting involved in it. We'll point it out, but that's it. We're not involved in it because that's going to be scope creep. And if you allow it, clients will then think, okay, I gave you $100 for, 50 minutes of your time or whatever. Now we're married. Like now you're going to help me with everything that happens. My car breaks down. I'm calling you. You're going to have to come over and help fix it. So some agencies have very strict, and the larger the agency, typically the more strict the scope is going to be. Something I've learned over the past, 6, 7 months is I have to make sure I have a stricter and stricter scope of work, because you can't be nice because sometimes people try to take advantage of that intentionally or unintentionally. If every time I call Ted, he gives me some advice, what am I going to do? I'm going to always call Ted. Um, and it has nothing to do with me trying to take advantage of Ted. It's just that he'll answer my call and he'll give me advice. So I'm going to keep calling Ted. So some agencies have processes and they have scope and they say, nope, that's out of our scope. We're not doing that. You hired us to do link building. We are not analyzing your title tags. Or you hired us to do technical. We're not doing your link building. Or you hired us as your SEOs. We are not worrying about your UX or security problems on your site.
And there are two different modes of working with a service provider there. If you hired them to do X, then you are setting the strategy. If you are saying, I don't know how to rank a page and I'm deferring to you to help me do better, then stop telling them to do X.
That is a huge thing with me, Ted. I've had people, I don't know how to rank. Help me rank. Okay, we're going to do this. None of one do that. It's like, well, okay, already we have a problem.
Yeah, I had one client at one point that I was an in-house SEO for, and they put all of this pay-per-click campaign work on my plate, and they started micromanaging me on these pay-per-click campaigns. And then at the end of the engagement, they're like, your SEO sucks. Well, duh. It's because I have this boss who sucks at setting strategy. And if you put me on pay-per-click, yeah, you know, all my time for SEO went out the window. And so, if you want good SEO, you have to have good strategy. And if you don't know how to rank a page, then stop telling the consultants what to do.
My my wife taught me something about that when she used to work in construction. You'd sometimes have a client that would see something on Home and Garden TV or on Pinterest and they say, I want to do this, to my remodel, to my build or whatever. That's a bad idea, or that's, against code, or this is, structurally unsound or whatever. Or it's going to lower your, I know the area here, that's going to lower your resale value. I still want to do it. And she'd go, okay. And then she would produce a piece of paper that said, you've been advised X, Y, and Z, and you're proceeding against the advice of your contractor. Because then they can't come back and sue. I mean, they can try to come back and sue you. But at that particular moment, most of the time, they'll back down off the unreasonable demand because they don't want to sign their name that this was my strategy. I'm the pay-per-click driver. I'm the person that's telling the SEO how to SEO. So
as I got more mature in my career as in-house, I would tell people both, and I ended up just being in interviews, I would start saying this. I would tell people that I was going to work for, and it's like, you can't help me with SEO. I don't want you to try to help me with SEO. If you want to help me with the SEO, it's going to be a problem, and let's just part ways right now. And I would always tell folks like, Lee, if you're the person I'm going to be reporting, you're going to be my VP, whatever. I'd say, look, my job, your job is to tell me what you need me to get done. Like, do you need more traffic? Do you need more paid? What is it? What's the business goal you want SEO to help with? And then I will draw out a strategy, say, here's how I'm going to do that. And then that's the proper. And then if something comes, if there's a roadblock, then I can either figure out how to get past it, or I might have to come to you, Lee, and say, hey, I'm getting this roadblock with this team. They're just refusing to do stuff. Can you help me out? Like that's the relationship that you should really have with the folks you're working with, whether you're an agency or whether you're a in-house, is that, look, I'm gonna do the SEO. I'm gonna do the best I possibly can. The business owner or the VP, they need to explain, okay, here's what we're trying to get done. We need more people viewing videos. We need more new users. We need more returning users. What's the business goal? And this goes back to our KPIs discussion weeks ago. What's the business goal? And as an SEO, you need to make sure you know the business goal so that you can figure out how you're going to help them achieve that. And that's where a lot of these problems occur, is that different people end up having different goals and thoughts of like what's going to happen and how a relationship is going to work. And you got to just, you got to be very clear about it up front. I'm learning that myself as a new consultant agency. I have to be a little more clear with folks, and say, no, this is how it's going to work. And then it's going to be better for everybody. It'll be better for me. It'll be better for them. It'll be better for business. So this was just a one pager. It was a great conversation I had with somebody online. Actually, I think I can see he's here in the chat right now, and it was a good question. And as I was going back and forth and answering him online, I'm like, you know what? This is actually a good discussion for a fight club. It's like, are SEOs out there scamming? When you see deficiencies in SEOs and in SEO campaigns on websites, is it because they're getting scammed? Is it because the person just doesn't know what they're doing? Is it, why are there still holes in SEO all over the place? And the answer is there's lots of reasons, and there's more reasons than I even have here and that we've even brought up, and they're not all because anything nefarious. It's just, it's life. Anything that involves people and business. And then we have Google that changes things regularly.
And you also have to realize that if you are hiring a person and you are unwilling to pay the price they originally asked or they quoted you for the work, and instead you nickeled and dimed them down to something way, way less. And I get this all the time. Well, I have a budget for 1,000 a month for SEO. Well, if you're dealing with a singular person, a consultant, they only have so many hours in a day, and you're probably not their only client. So if you're the client who pays the bare minimum, then what's going to happen is they're going to dedicate more of their daily hours to their higher paying clients.
Yep.
And if they have too many clients, then they can never deliver for anyone. And so there is a maximum roster size for an independent consultant, and there is a maximum roster size for an agency.
Mhm.
And so probably the most important question you can ask an SEO is, how many other clients are you giving your time to? And what does my budget allow me, in that pool of people you are doing work for? And there are some clients that $1,000 a month, I can't do proper SEO for you at $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
The best I could do is take a look at what you did last month, take a look at where we are now, and give you advice on what you should work on for next month. And that's $1,000 a month service, but that's not implementing everything, and that's not finding every problem in the mistake. And it's also not giving you SEO that has a 10-year, performance boost based on a 3-month contract. We all want investments that give a 10-year return over 3 months. But, there's no 3-month SEO package that does that. And some SEO has had a 10-year head start on link building, payday loans. There's no 3-month SEO contract to negate it unless you get really black hat. I know Holly's in the chat saying hold my beer, but in general, if you're dealing with factor measurement over time, then you have to get really black hat in order to make up for that and not put in the time. And there are white hat ways to do it. There are white hat ways to go after a keyword like payday loan. But if you're not going to invest the money to make up for the head start all the other players have, then, you're going to have a really hard time, or you're going to go really black hat and take a lot of risk.
Those are those are true, but there's also another piece in that not all SEOs are created equally. So if Ted charges, a minimum of $25,000 a month for a client, Charles charges $2,500 minimum per client, and I have a $25 a month package, who do you think is going to give you the best SEO?
Well, and not all SEO is the same.
Mhm.
If you have an enterprise SEO, they're not going to let you implement the SEO. You're going to have to do consensus building and hope that they do the things that put them in a better path. But if you're going to do consensus building with a plumber, that's probably not going to be effective either. So, the SEO for one client is not necessarily the SEO you rubber stamp for all clients. And it's ridiculous to think that. And you can't charge a enterprise the same amount that you would charge a plumber. I mean, there are examples in both directions on why that's inappropriate and ridiculous.
So in our chat, Stephanie had a couple of comments about agency frustrations based on Charles' presentation, not
Yeah,
frustrations
yeah.
with Charles.
Un
So
Unmute, Stephanie. Tell us about it.
yeah,
I had 5% battery left on my phone. So Lee's like, you want to hop on? I'm like, I have to find a different device. Yeah, this is very, very relevant for a lot of agencies and us in particular, where we're working with a limited budget and clients that want us to do a little bit of everything. Not just SEO and every part of SEO, from the strategy to the link building to the content. And now I even have some of my clients saying, we have a lot of competitors doing video content. We want to do video content. We want to do, like, they don't understand where scope creep comes in. So I love this entire conversation because while I can sit here and feel frustrated and have some words, hearing Ted talk about it or Charles talk about it, it gives me different words and a different way of thinking about how to basically set those really good boundaries at the beginning of the client relationship. You define your role, you define what you're going to deliver. Really knowing those KPIs helps, because then when they say, hey, you guys aren't living up to your end of the deal. Like, I have a client right now where, all things considered, it looks like we are a blazing success. And I talk to this client and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just disappointed with the results that I'm getting for what we're doing. And I'm like, well, can you define how? Because it looks like you've got a billion leads coming in. So, are you tracking what happens to those leads once they get to you? Because that ends my responsibility there. I don't close the deal for you. There's a
And
lot of different things that kind of go into that. And, defining it at the beginning might help keep some of those awkward conversations from occurring later on down the road.
And there's a lot of CROs out there that poison the SEO to the client. And what they're saying is, well, I'm going to do the part that the SEO doesn't do. I'm going to pick it up where the SEO left off and deliver the conversion. And we're going to get rid of that SEO. Well, if you're going to get rid of that SEO, you better do the part the SEO did, because you can't convert if you don't have these other things in place for organic. Now, what you can do is you can say, well, I'm not going to get, traffic from organic. I can get traffic cheaper if I buy it off of pay-per-click, or if I get it from email campaigns, or if I set up TV commercials. Sure, fine. But if you're telling me that you're going to fire the SEO because you can convert better on the last mile of what the past SEO did, well, that's only going to get you so far before you have to do what the last SEO did. And that work is expensive. So a lot of those CRO people that say, well, I'm just gonna, steal SEO customers because I'm gonna help them convert better, that works for like one engagement. And then you better start doing good SEO, or you're screwed and you're lying to that client. Because yeah, there's we can often steal customers from other people, and we can often find problems the last SEO didn't resolve. But that doesn't mean you're going to get everything you dreamed of for a low, low price. We quote a price usually based on the amount of work it's going to take us to do it. And if you're the best of the best, you quote a price based on the value you're going to deliver to the business, and you better deliver that value. So you can either get all your hours covered, or you can get the value of the benefit you deliver, but you better deliver that benefit. Or you're one of those people that can do a handful of things and hopefully some of that works, and then you lose the customer and you move on to the next one. And all of that is out there in the marketplace. Which one do you want to be? Which one do you need? Some of the time I need someone to come in for a week and fix my email server. I don't need them for 10 months. I don't need them to do everything else. I just have a problem. And that's okay. But just know that not all engagements are that.
And as a consultant or an agency, you also have to be very good at identifying. So let's say Ted comes to me and say, I need you to fix my links. I need more links. As an agency or consultant, I have to be able to look at that site and say, is that even the problem? Or, sorry, client, that's not the problem. The client, I believe the problem is this. Now I can do that part for you. Do you want to hire me just to do that? But I don't, what are you trying to solve? And that really boils down to, as a consultant or an agency, and even in-house, even as an in-house, when someone comes to me with a problem, I immediately I always do. I call fact checking. I immediately try to figure out what exactly are they trying to fix, because they never come to me and say, this is my problem. They come and give me like a generic problem. I even, when I would do tests for SEOs, before I would hire anybody, you had to do a test. And I would give you a page with a bazillion SEO problems on it, like all kinds of problems on it. And I would always identify, say, all right, here's the scenario. Someone has come to you and said, I'm not finding this page on Google. What's the problem? And the funny thing is, nobody ever came back to me and said, can you define what you mean by not finding this page? Like, what are you doing? Like, no one ever asked that question. They always dove into the code and showed me all the problems with the code. And that actually always exposed, like, some people didn't know, some people I could tell if people that were good at technical versus good at content. Someone who was more content oriented would tell me all the optimizations and not notice that there's a no follow on the page or a no index on the page. They wouldn't even see that. Or people would see the no index, but they wouldn't bring up the fact that there was no keyword focus on the page. But nobody ever came to me and said, well, what exactly are you trying to do? Or how exactly are you trying to search? Because I'd have people, and this is an enterprise, come to me and say, I'm not finding it. I'm not finding our website. I was like, well, how are they searching? And then it would be funny that the folks over me would, you can't ask that question. Yeah, I can ask that question. How are they searching? What are they doing? And then I'd find out they're typing in either some bizarre term that, well, why would you even expect us to rank for it? Or they're typing in they're basically, their expectation is not realistic. Or their expectation is perfectly reasonable. I didn't know that was a thing we were trying to rank for. I didn't know that was even a tool that we had. Someone comes to me and says, "Oh, we're trying to rank this." I'm like, "I didn't even know that part of the website existed." Sure, we can get that ranking. Let's get it in the process. So it goes right back again. A couple months ago, a couple weeks ago, understanding KPIs. You got to get good asking questions. But yeah, be very clear with folks. Like, what is it you need me to do? Try to understand what they're trying to accomplish, and then communicate with what can you do. And again, it's something I'm learning right now. I do migrations, and I've learned one of the most basic things I've learned is I can't charge everybody the same amount because a 100-page migration is extremely different than a million-page migration. And that's kind of obvious saying it out loud, but when I first started doing my billing, I didn't even consider that. I was like, yeah, these are very different kinds of migrations taking place. I need to charge very different amounts.
And there are some game-breaking advancements that agencies can do if they learn which clients to fire and when to fire them.
Yep.
And and it's not all bad. Like you just need to be more selective on the work you want to take on. Like if a client is a technical SEO nightmare because they used all these crazy frameworks and it's impossible to do anything without breaking 7 other things, and you're constantly going to be screamed at by that client with them calling you up. I don't want that. You don't want that. Pass on that. Don't take it on. And when I started realizing that, these $1,000 clients I don't want, when I figured out that, oh, well, I could just tell them I'll look at what they did last month, I'll look at where they are now, and I'll give them some advice to what to work on next month, and then I could take that $1,000. Well, holy crap, I could take on 50 of those in my roster and be making $50,000 a month and not doing any of the implementation.
Mhm.
And as long as everybody's okay with that, there's nothing scammy about that. It's just what are you buying and what are you delivering, you know? Uh, and just take on that work. You can take all those $1,000 clients and give them $1,000 worth of value, but you can't take $1,000 client and do everything for them everywhere. You just can't do it. So what work do you want to take on? And you gotta fire the client that is ruining the outcomes for all your other clients. That guy has to go.
Yeah, there are aspirin clients, that's for sure. And one of the things that I see that agency owners are reluctant to do is like, this client's $1,000 a month. They're taking up 30 hours a week of your time. It's a horrible thing. You dread every time you look at your email or every time your phone rings because you think it's them bitching about something else because they have nothing better to do.
Yeah,
But they won't fire 'em. Yeah,
you got to set boundaries too. Like if you take those $1,000 a month clients, you got to let them understand that they get 2 1-hour meetings per month. And when they contact you, you got to say, let's talk about it in our scheduled meeting.
Hmm.
But you can't have 4 calls a day for 2 hours a call. You can't do that for $1,000 a month.
There's not a dollar amount that I will take on as a retainer to feel that dread every time my phone rings. That's just like, that's my baseline. Like, I don't want to hate myself when I see my phone ring more than I already do, just on a general basis. I don't use my phone for that. Like, I don't make phone calls. But, I have gotten rid of a lot of clients that are very like, they want to talk all the time. It's like, this phone call could have been an email. Actually, better yet, this phone call and email, just, you don't need to know this information. This does not help you. This does not affect you. You can wait until our monthly recap email that we send you and read about it. But yeah, I do heavier screening now when I even take on clients to know, like, this client knows that they need somebody that wants to do their job so that they can do their job. They don't want to know about SEO or digital marketing. They want to go, put on a roof. They don't want to tell me, no, I don't want to do link building this way, or no, I don't want to, change the website in this way, because they respect my role as the expert. So I don't want to work with micromanaging clients. I don't want to work with clients that actually care about SEO or want to learn it.
Yep. And so it's all about, what do you want to take on and what do you need to charge to do that? At the end of the day. All right. Should we get to some questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Everybody's favorite part.
A couple
yeah,
in
I was
there.
gonna say I was gonna talk about AI images, but if you don't mind, let's wait that until next week and just go right into questions for people.
Yeah, your
This turned
slide
into
number
this.
one kind of dominated the
Yeah, we
show.
never got past number one, which is fine. That's good. This is good. I
Sorry,
feel bad
Charles,
now.
I
I
got
wish
really excited.
I literally did this slide like 45 minutes before the beginning of this. Like, oh, I gotta put this together. It's a good little conversation to have. But yeah, no, good stuff.
So Charles, there's a 3-slide limit on any of your presentations now.
Well, you got to be
Indeed.
careful about what's on slide 1.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that too as I was doing this. I'm like, this could turn into a whole session. I was prepared for this to turn. I was mentally and emotionally prepared for this to turn into a whole session. Give folks a reason to come back next week, right?
Yep. All right, let's see. Holly Stark's the most interesting woman in the world, from Terry Power. I would have to agree that a lot of the stuff that Holly does, it's captivating. From a marketing standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a black hat standpoint, from a cleverness standpoint, from an inventing things standpoint. Yeah, there's a lot of different angles. The stuff some people do becomes interesting. Sorry, let me decline that. So yeah, definitely one of the people I really enjoy seeing at conferences, because what they do is so different.
Yeah,
All
and
right,
Holly's a friend, and I'm in the fortunate position periodically to get to peek inside her secret lab, and she's got some cool things and some odd things and everything else. But It's never boring, that's for sure.
Yep. Let's see. Hey Charles, thanks again for answering my question, catching my first live Fight Club. Yeah, it's fun to be live. It can be interactive for people who are here when we're doing the show. If you're not here when we're doing the show, we do read the comments. We read the good ones and the bad ones, and if your comment doesn't show up, we don't censor the comments. That's Google censoring you for some reason. Something you said or something you pasted in got you kicked out. We will block spam though. So if you start putting in, your OnlyFans links, that's going down. It has to be at least on topic for what we do.
I can attest that Ted always takes my OnlyFans links down.
y- well, and Lee's,
Bu-
geez.
Bubble bath SEO.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Holly says I'm just a spammer. I don't know. I mean, you do poke the bear a lot, but at the end of the day, if what you're doing works, I mean, Google's not going to like it. Google likes SEO that doesn't work. Google wants to pick what's winning. Google doesn't want marketers to pick what wins. Google wants to pick what wins. So if marketers are doing things that win, I guarantee eventually that's going to be against the rules.
Yeah.
So, it's just a cat and mouse game. Let's see. Simon says there are a lot of scammer SEOs. It's the sad truth of our industry. It's kind of why I got interested in this industry. There was a ton of snake oil when I got into this business.
Mhm.
And I saw it as an opportunity. We could bring in some statistics and some scientific method and some single variable testing and some cool new technology. And, you know, uh, it's it's not a bad thing that an industry needs help. All right. It's an opportunity. And it's on the businesses to figure out what the hell they want and what standards they have. So if you keep hiring scammers who don't do what you paid them to do, well, stop doing that. All right. You may have to pay a bit more. You may have to do better due diligence, you know. But yeah. No, I agree with you, Simon. There's a lot out there. I think there's a lot less and people are better informed today, but yeah, it still happens. There's always a new guy. There's always a new client. There's always a new business, and they can get taken advantage of. Let's see. In theory, if a website has 2,000 indexable URLs and 8,000 non-indexable URLs, why the heck would that be the case? How does Google look at a page like this or a site like this? Because they have so many damn URLs. They should all be indexable.
I think I think
If
the mean indexed is the way I read that question. Like if you had a site that's got 10,000 pages and 2,000 are indexed and 8,000 are not, is kind of the way I read that question.
I
Rather
was
than
looking at I was looking at it slightly different. So here's a great example of what we were just talking about. Someone defined a problem, but we're trying to figure out exactly what you're trying to do. I assumed, and I could be wrong, that in their search console, it's showing 2,000 indexed and 8,000 not indexed.
Yeah,
Um,
it's never about the number. It's always about how you did it. All
Yeah,
right.
this tells me there's probably a problem on the site, and my guess is there's a linking problem, or maybe there was a migration that was never really done properly, or there's there are pages that shouldn't be indexed that you're linking to. That's what this is kind of telling me. Um, Sorry, Ted, I just want to jump in because I see this
Yeah,
a lot,
yeah.
especially with e-commerce. Like all the
Because
search pages are indexed, and that you don't want them indexed.
the evidence I give you is all the other websites out there that have more than 10,000 pages and they're indexed just fine. All right. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there. And so if you have a 10,000 page site, but you can only get 2,000 max indexed, you have an issue. Something went wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, and it depends on, I hate to do the it depends, but the 8,000 not indexed because they're duplicate pages, they're crap content. Do you have a problem getting them crawled? What exactly is the reason that Google is giving you the middle finger on, the 8,000 pages? Because until you can answer that, you can't figure out, well, what do I do with them?
And
Do
And it's never the number's fault. I mean, you could have a 10-page website and two of them are indexed and eight aren't. You could have the exact same problem and the exact same success rate, but it's almost never the number's fault.
Mhm.
I mean, there is a scale where the number might be the problem, but for most people, you never hit that scale. Holly might hit that scale. Um,
And I would ask, do you want those pages indexed? My guess from the question is he doesn't want those pages indexed. Um,
yeah, then why have them? You know?
yeah, I think there's a bigger problem going on with the website. Now, the overall question, like, hey, having non-indexable pages, is that bad for my site? Well, it's bad in the sense that if Google's crawling pages you don't want indexed and ranked, then it's wasting your crawl budget. So that's the quote unquote bad part about it. Um, but yeah,
I
it's
mean, it's what are these 8,000 non-indexable pages? Is it like 8,000 shopping carts that got indexed? I
yeah.
mean, what is a non-indexable page and why would you want one?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been answering questions in the chat, and that was one I didn't answer only because I said we need to this is a bigger
Yeah, yeah.
conversation. This isn't just a quick one line.
There's
Check your Search
something I
Console.
don't understand about the inquiry. All
Yeah.
right. And so, what is a non-indexable page and why would I want one? Why couldn't those be pages that go away or pages that get fixed?
Yeah. My guess is, and it's a guess, he looked at Search Console. Search Console says 2,000 indexed, 8,000 non-indexable. He's got that green and gray bar, and he's like, okay, is
Yeah,
this bad
yeah.
for my site? And the quick answer is, yeah, it's bad because you're wasting crawl budget on, four times the size of your site on pages you don't want indexed. But is a bigger issue, like why is it doing that?
Well,
You got to dig into the site and figure that out.
often that gray portion, that's often like an infinite crawl, and you ran out of crawl budget, and Google found a lot of duplicate URLs for the same content. So, for example, the faceted navigation, Google's looking at every pagination page sorted by price, sorted alphabetically, sorted by color,
Yeah.
filtered by style, filtered by material. And oops, we never got out of the socks category. See you
Yep.
next month.
Yep.
That, that's probably the likely candidate is something like that. Um, so I'd look for that first. Look at your web server logs for the Google bot visits and see if they're getting into things they shouldn't be getting into. Oftentimes I see it, Googlebot is adding products to the cart, taking the products out of the cart, adding two more products to the cart. If Googlebot's doing that stuff, then you got to fix that. Um, let's see. It says pages we don't want to rank with anymore. So past web designs? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Can I pay for Google Ads to get my organic rankings to go up? Is there a correlation? Sometimes there is, and usually there isn't, and it's all about the analysis, and it's usually data mistakes. The thing I can tell you is that you can learn things from your pay-per-click that can benefit your SEO, like which keywords convert. Because you don't want to do SEO for the ones that never convert in pay-per-click, because that's just wasted time. So you could run a $50 ad campaign and figure out which keywords are the ones you should probably spend most of your time on. What do you think, Lee? You like finding the good ones?
I think you've got your answer was a good answer on that. I don't have a lot to add to that one. I was looking at the next question coming up, and thinking about it before we jump on it.
All right, let me read it out. My business to business client wants to rank for a certain keyword. All right. So I'm already getting the spider senses going off, and I haven't even finished the question. All right. And the same time, they also have three other pages that also want to rank for the same keyword. All right. Now they want to cannibalize. All right. So I'm feeling very uneasy for you at this moment. They say that all pages are important. Well, how about only one can rank best? So let's either combine them all into one page that we can rank best, or let's make some grown-up choices and figure out which one needs to be the one that wins. And that can be based on which one converts best, which one currently ranks best, which one has the best profitability. There are lots of reasons why you can pick a winner, but you actually have to make the choice so we can make that one win. And so that's the hard conversation you need to have with them is, you can't have all four pages be at the top because there's only one page at the top. So which one is it?
I agree with you. I'm going to add a couple of things to that. One is we spent, about half an hour today talking about client management. Part of this is a client management issue. So I would just take the advice that came from that discussion. Now, Ted, I'm going to come at you, sir.
Okay.
In general, my first response would be your first response. You want to cannibalize. Cannibalization is a bad thing. But I recall you educating me on where cannibalization is not always a bad thing.
It's not always a bad
And
thing.
that can be, for example, if you have a website that deals in jewelry, and I've got 25 different pages that I want to rank for sterling silver amethyst bracelet.
Yeah, because you have multiple SKUs. They're different products, but they are all technically a sterling silver amethyst bracelet. And cannibalization is your friend in those cases, because if you 410 the out of stocks, you'll put the next two in stock sterling silver amethyst bracelets into search where they can keep selling units where your out of stocks cannot keep selling units. So you can actually queue up product if you're clever with cannibalization to efficiently sell out. And you definitely want to do this if you're in Q4, where say you do 80% of your sales for the year. You want to queue up a lot of sterling silver amethyst bracelets, and you want to 410 aggressively the sold outs, and you'll fix them in January when you have no sales. So, be strategic with SEO. And you can also do lots of other things like in online retail. Like you could leverage your SEO to help get the nearly sold out. Oh, you have a lot of apparel that only has extra small and 5X left in stock. Well, let's get aggressive with that size marketing. Let's get those bins emptied out and off the shelf so the fulfillment center can move in new product, and we can make better money. You got to clear those shelves in the fulfillment center.
So Ted, I'm going to anticipate questions that people have out there, and questions I'll probably get if I ever give this advice. I don't know how to do a 410, or I can't do a 410. Typically, they both mean the same thing. Will a 404 work?
No,
So if they 404 the page as opposed to 410, will it still work? And
no,
you
nope.
unequivocally say no. Okay,
That'll
good to know.
last forever in search. So you've shot yourself in the foot by not knowing how to or not being willing to. So
Okay.
yeah,
And then here's the next thing you'll hear is I'm the dev. I went to Google's documentation. It said a 410 is gone forever. Well, I can't ever bring this our item back, can I? By
Google's
410 it.
definition of gone forever is until they discover it again. All right. So when you stop 410ing it, they will discover it again. And if it ranks better than the other sterling silver amethyst bracelets, it's going to pop right back up there.
So you
And
would
so,
suggest 410 it, drop the links, drop it out of the XML sitemaps, and then once you want it back, just bring it back to 200 status, link to
yeah,
it, and put it back in the
resurrect it,
sitemaps. Yep.
bring it back.
So the last question I'll ask Ted, this theory that you have about 410ing products, how many years did you do that in ecom SEO?
Oh, we probably figured that out at about year 5 or 6. So probably 11, 12 years we did the 410 strategy at scale. So doing many thousands and thousands of orders a day.
All right, so we won't call that guesswork then. We'll say
Yeah, yeah. No, because the alternative is you're showing your out of stock products in Q4. Those are ranking best. And you do not want to show out of stock products in Q4. That's a disaster. And there's nothing good about that. So don't do it. All right, let's see. Where were we? That was the B2B one. All right, let's see. Great example of what we are discussing here. They tell you the business goal and you define the SEO strategy. Yeah, yeah. If they tell you what to do, they're micromanaging you and it's their strategy at that point. Um, when I give people an audit, here's what typically happens. They come back after 2 or 3 months and they said, Ted, we did the SEO and it's not working. And I'll go and I'll run a couple reports and I'll say, but you haven't addressed anything I recommended you do in the audit. Well, we did some different SEO. Well, what did you do? Well, the last SEO said that we had a backlink problem with some bad links, and so we focused on that. That wasn't in my audit. That's not what I told you to do. I gave you my best advice, and you opted to do something else, and now you're blaming me for it not working. How about you blame the last SEO? Give him a call. Um, that happens a lot, It's kind of all the same problem. Let's see. Each page should have its own keyword. Yeah. Well, that's Charles. Yeah, one keyword per page is a great design pattern. It's one of my favorites. It can only rank best for one keyword anyway. It can rank for a lot of keywords, but only one of them will rank best, and that better be the most important one for making money.
Yeah, we need to clarify something here. When you say one keyword, you're really talking about one topical keyword, because you're not sitting there saying you should have a Seattle plumber page and a plumber Seattle page and a best Seattle plumber page and a best plumber Seattle page, so that you get, one keyword per page.
Yeah, technically, you need to do a little research to figure out when it stops being one keyword and starts being another.
Right.
And so that's a poorly defined area of SEO, is figuring out how topically distant can you get and still have it be the same search term. And so I found with, like, best wireless headset Call of Duty, best wireless headset Minecraft, that was awesome. That worked great. But when I drifted all the way out to unique Xbox gift ideas, that didn't work, didn't perform. So there's a topical distance at which point it becomes a different pages problem.
Yeah.
Let's see, down to the last few here. A friend of mine got a fake 1-star review dropped entirely out of Maps, reported the review to Google, and they came back and said their team investigated the review and it doesn't violate their policy. So maybe it's a different problem. I can tell you right now, I did a search this morning because I told someone that, hey, get one honest review. He's like, well, I can't get a fake. Well, I didn't say get a fake review. I said get one honest review, because I see it all the time in search. You can search DUI lawyer Los Angeles, and if you scroll far enough, you'll eventually see a 5-star one review showing the stars. And you want that for your click-through rate, because the star treatment is awesome for click-through rate. But yeah, again, it's not the number, it's not the one review 5 stars that's the problem. It's the how you did it, or it's a different problem altogether. Let's see. And my advice for the 5-star one review: find someone who did it, see how they implemented that on page, and make sure you do something similar, because it's always good to have a working example. All right. Any other comments on one review?
No, I think, a lot of times when I see a question of this form, this thing happened and the site tanked, and there's an automatic assumption that the two things are tied together. I find myself questioning, that one single thing, because typically it's not one single thing. And most of the time, in my experience, it's not the thing that just happened that's the problem that led to, the decline in this case.
Yeah, and if other people can do it and you can't, well, that doesn't seem fair. So there must be a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Is there anything else she can do other than have more people report the review? Well, I'd look for other problems, because if you spend too much time blaming the review, that could be time where you find out what's actually wrong. And so I don't think a 5-star one review situation is the cause of a problem, especially if Google said there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
otherwise you'd weaponize it. You know, I'm in position 11. I just come and give a 1 star to everybody in front of me, and I'm number one. The problem is that my number one position lasts for about a day until somebody else gives me a 1 star, and I'm gone too. So
all right, let's see. Let's see. No OnlyFans link. Okay, I'm gonna have to do some more web design this week. Yep. Definitely if you're trying to use uh, our comments as a way to get traffic, boy, that's a big mistake. Not because you get in trouble, just because there's no traffic there. So, uh, if your targeting is wrong, your marketing plan is wrong by extension. It's a case of that. How do you rank in ChatGPT? Well, the interesting thing is I just saw some test data that hinted that ranking in Google is a viable path to ranking in ChatGPT. And so in this particular case, they put in a page that only had been shared with Google, and it had a test keyword on it. And when they asked ChatGPT to define the test keyword, it cited that page. So some aspect of ChatGPT, maybe their search, is aware of what's on Google. So it looks like there's cross-pollination, but I wouldn't count on that being the only thing. The real way to do it correctly is to rank and Bing. Rank and Bing and don't block Common Crawl.
yeah, that's the thing is I would question whether or not Bing also crawled that page, because that's typically ChatGPT's or OpenAI's search path is through the Bing results. So, you know, if Bing also had that page, then, you know, if Bing doesn't have that page, then it does lend some credibility to they've expanded their search parameters.
I think they blocked Bing from seeing the content of the page, but you have to dive deeper in the test methodology. But there is an actual test out there that has a result that's suggestive that some aspect of ChatGPT is aware of search results from Google. So pays to test. So test it out. All right. Do you think backlinks have less of an effect than in the past? Well, here's the thing about that. Yes, they are weaker. Google diminished their power. But on a list of the 10,000 most strong ranking factors, it went from 78 to 115, but it's still a strong, strong factor that you need to play, and it's still at the top of the strongest factors in SEO. Is it weaker? Yes. But does that mean you don't do it? No, you still need to do it. What are your thoughts on all these gurus explaining how to rank in LLMs with no data well, I mean, if they have no data or evidence, or they're not giving you a procedure so you can go prove it for yourself, you probably shouldn't waste your time. But that being said, if they're saying, hey, I got this result and here is how I did it, test it if you want, well, then be a tester.
Yeah.
Let everybody know what you find.
We did a whole show on this last week, but the other thing is it possible to test LLMs given personalization? Given personalization is an assumption. You're assuming that personalization impacts the LLM, the AI overview coming from it. And that I haven't seen any data one way or another. So that's an open assumption. So yeah, it's possible to test all these things because a number of people are doing it. They're getting some really great and interesting results in there. But
And you can badger the LLM and modify the prompts until it gives you the answer you want. So you got to be careful testing the LLMs because you can actually poison it with aggressive reprompting. I would query for lists of the best SEO tools, and I'd see that Quora wasn't on the list. So I'd ask the LLM, why isn't Quora on the list? And the LLM would say, good point. This is a great tool for these reasons, and you can use it for this and that. And then I'd expand it and say, well, give me a list of the top 200 tools, and then it would add Quora to the list. Does that count as a test result? And I don't think it does. But just know that you could probably spoil the test by badgering the LLM.
you also have to remember that the LLM results that you get are colored by your past history. I mean, Charles and I were talking about this yesterday when he was looking at some of the things in his, and when I ran it in mine, I got a completely different result. And some of the things in mine that it was popping up when he ran it in his got a completely different result because it also pulls from your entire chat history that it's aware of. So you're going to have a more Quora-centric answer than Charles or I, for example.
But it didn't start that way. I polluted it with the over testing.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our show. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.